Hello, everyone. I wanted to talk about this paper, which I think is a really important and interesting paper that was done out of the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. It's called SARS-CoV-2 Infection and Persistence Throughout the Human Body and Brain. Let's look at the abstract and talk about it. So lots of people involved in this study. And basically, what they did is they looked at 44 people who died with or as a result of COVID-19. So they didn't necessarily have to die because of COVID-19. They just had to have been infected with COVID-19, and they died because of COVID-19 or sometimes because of something else. But they took those 44 of these people and they did complete autopsies on them, and they sampled all their different tissues. And what they did is they looked for viral DNA signatures, RNA signatures, and then they also looked for active virus. And what they did is they found active virus in some people up to 99 days after they were infected with with COVID. And of the 44 people, all but 5 of them, they were thought to have died because of COVID-19. But even in those people that had mild or asymptomatic symptoms, which may have been those 5 that didn't die of COVID-19, they still found virus replication throughout the whole thing. The other thing they found interesting was that while they found the virus in all kinds of tissue outside the lungs, only within the lungs really did they find a lot of inflammation and a lot of tissue damage. In other places, they had viral replication going on, but there wasn't much tissue damage there. Okay, so that's the gist of it. The other thing to remember about this study was all of these patients, they died in the first year of the pandemic. That was before the vaccine. So it's unknown if you have the vaccine and you get a breakthrough infection, will you have this wide distribution of the virus? Or does the vaccine somehow protect you from wide distribution of the virus throughout your tissues? We don't know that. This study is not equipped to answer that question, because all these patients unfortunately died before the availability of the vaccine. So this study cannot address that question, although that's a very interesting question and to look into. All right, so let's look at this. This is kind of the most important figure in the whole paper, and what you see here is this first column is the early group. So these are people that died within 14 days of the infection. And then this is the middle group, people who died between 2 weeks and a month after infection. And then these are the people that died over a month after the infection. So reddish things mean higher numbers, and bluish means lower numbers, and white means they didn't find it. All right, so look here in the respiratory tract. In the early infection people, of course, they have lots of virus in the lungs and the trachea and the bronchus, and then it kind of clears out a little more in the middle, and then in late patients, it kind of clears. As you can see, there's lots more virus early on than in late overall. Overall, this late group looks mostly blue. But what you see is there is detectable virus in the cardiovascular tissue, so the heart, the aorta, lymphoid tissue, so lymph nodes, the GI tract, kidney, uterus, muscle, nerve, eye, and then the brain. So that's what's interesting. This is what they found the most interesting, is there was quite a lot of viral replication in the brain early on. Luckily, this did not seem to cause any damage as far as they could tell histologically when they looked at it under a microscope, but there is viral replication in the brain, and this viral replication persists in the late stages. So anyways, this was a very good paper where it gives a lot of information that we needed to know. Like, until recently, they didn't know when they found virus in other parts of the tissue, was it contamination from the blood, or was it actually in the tissues? This paper definitively says no, it's in the tissues. It's not contamination from the blood or contamination from the lungs. There is definitely viral replication happening in basically all the tissues throughout the body. But interestingly, the inflammation is limited mostly to the lungs in terms of tissue damage as a result of the virus, even though the virus is replicating in other parts of the body. All right, so I will link this paper below if you want to take a look at it. They looked at this using two different methods. They did PCR and what's called in situ hybridization, which means they put the tissue on a slide and they have radioactive or fluorescent labeled DNA tags that will hybridize and match up with the viral RNA. And then when it does that, it lights up, and you can see cool pictures like this right here. This is the in situ hybridization. Oh no, this is the protein expression. They used an antibody for this, but they look very similar to this. In situ hybridization looks similar to this and this. And they showed in here the virus is localized to the Golgi and the endoplasmic reticulum, which if you remember from high school biology class, those are the areas where the protein synthesis happens inside the cell, which makes sense because the virus hijacks the protein synthesis mechanism of a cell to create more of itself. So it makes sense that that's where it's going to be. All right, so a very, very important paper. I will link this below, and you guys can read it yourself if you're interested. All right, thanks for watching.